All right, my friends, we're going to talk about the Texas Homestead Exemption. This is actually pretty important. Some subscribers sent me the link on the Texas Homestead Exemption, the law, which I'll relate to you. And let's just say you're struggling a little bit. You live in the great state of Texas. You're happy with your home. You're happy in your community. But, man, you're getting squeezed financially. What do? You own your home? Do you do a reverse mortgage? Do you sell and downsize and go to some other community that you don't know anybody? You got to pay the commissions on that? Well, I don't know. But let's talk about this because the Texas Homestead Exemption could give you an opportunity to stay in your home without taking a reverse mortgage and not be so squeezed. It's pretty interesting, actually. And so, as I always say, I would rather have you live in a place with low property tax and high income tax because you can easily reduce your income tax with just some basic Social Security planning. You can't reduce your property tax, though. And Texas is high property tax and low and no income tax, actually, like New Hampshire. Some of the other states as well have high property tax and no state income tax. Tennessee has low property tax and low and no income tax, but they do have high sales tax. But all right, so let's dive into this. I did a spreadsheet, as is my want, because I enjoy spreadsheets quite a bit. And when we lived in Texas, we lived in Bernie, which is in Kendall County. And our house was $320,000. All right, that's what it was. We paid about $8,000 a year in property tax, which is about 2.5%. Now you do get a homestead exemption. I think it's $10,000 to $15,000 in Kendall County off the value of your home. So it does reduce the home value by a little bit. But if you've ever owned a home, you know how it works. I think it's the per mil is what they charge you for income tax or a property tax. And that will always be your assessed value will seem a whole lot lower than your appraised value. But it doesn't matter because at the end of the day, you're still paying the property tax is still the amount. Regardless of what their assessed value is, only thing that matters is what's going out of your pocket into the county coffers, so to speak. All right, so in this case, we're paying $8,000 on $320,000. We're going to say we're 75 years old and we're getting squeezed. All right, we're like, man, we have $666 a month going to property tax. Now we're only making $2,500 a month on Social Security, and we got $1,000 a month coming from IRA distributions. So our total income is $3,500 a month. But 667 of that is going to property tax, which is 19% of our total income is going to property tax. And lo and behold, no wonder why the Consumer Expenditure Survey will say that the bulk, over a third of your income that you make in retirement is going to go to housing costs because property taxes don't go away. They just don't. So when you're like, man, if I could just not pay this $667 a month, I'd be in a lot better place because we love our community. We love our neighbors. We love where we live. We've been here for a long time. We don't want to move. And we know a lot of retirees are happiest in a community, a homogenous community where they know the people who are like them, attend the same churches, go to the same basketball games, support the same schools and whatnot. There are studies that show that the community happiness for retirees, the community is a big, big reason for happiness in the community. Transients, not so much. Homegrown, homogenous people, and that doesn't mean racial homogenous, it just means similar kind of people that you know, that you love, that you've been around for a long time. Studies that actually quantify that, I find that to be pretty interesting. So we don't want you to move someplace to save money so you can be miserable. That's not what we're trying to do here. All right, now the drawback by the tax, I'll read it to you. The over 65 in tax, over 65 tax and disabled person deferral. If you are a homeowner who qualifies for the over 65 or disabled person exemption, you may defer or postpone paying any property tax on your home for as long as you own and live in it. It's got to be owner occupied. Check with your appraisal district for information on how to do this. It is important to note that this deferral only postpones your taxes and does not cancel them, all right? It also accrues 8% interest annually until the deferral is removed, until you pay it off. When the property is sold or comes under the ownership of heirs, the taxes and accrued interest becomes payable. So I just said, let's do a thing here. We're going to say, I'm 75 years old. My wife and I expect to live until we're 90, which would be 15 years. And we're getting squeezed on a $667 a month. And we're like, man, we're going to defer that when we don't want to take a reverse mortgage. So we're going to defer our $8,000 a year property tax. And now what we're going to do is we're going to inflate our home value by 2% a year. So you can see the property tax the next year will be $8,160, the property tax the following year, $8,323, and such and such. And what I'm going to do is we're 8% interest. We're going to compound it or we're going to do simple because it doesn't state if it's compounded interest or simple interest. And we're going to say how much total in taxes will we pay plus interest at when we die and leave the house to our kids. Does that make sense? So we're not paying any tax. We're going to save $667 a month the first year, which actually equate to total savings of $138,000. So we're not going to pay $138,000 of tax over the next 15 years. So we're going to save roughly $10,000, $11,000 a year, or about $900 a month in income from not having to pay tax. But our kids will pay once they sell the home. All right, so now what happens is we're going to compound this at, oops, we got to put 15 there. Bear with me just a second. Boy, there we go. All right, so we're going to compound this at 8% a year. So compounding interest is the interest draws interest on itself over year, over year, over year. So that's going to be much more painful from a borrower's perspective than simple interest. And you can see $8,000 compounded 8% was going to cost us $25,377 when we die or when we sell our home. After 15 years, because we defer that $8,000 on property tax, we're going to have to come up with $25,377. After 14 years, because we deferred $8,160 of property tax at 8% compounding, we're going to have to come up with $23,967. And so on and so on. So here's year 10. We're only going to compound it for 6 years because year 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. And so in that case, our property tax was $9,561 because our house has grown in value, as do our taxes. Compounded at 8% a year interest for 6 years, the $9,500 we deferred will cost us $15,172 when all is said and done. So basically the $9,500 principal and another $6,000 or so in interest. So when all said and done, we have $62,000 we got to pay, or our heirs got to pay when we sell the home or when we die and they sell the home. Now, at this point, our house is worth $422,000. All right, so our house is worth $159,000 more than we owe. So they'll have to sell the property, but they'll still net $159,000 because 422 minus 262 is roughly $160,000. So even though they'll have to come up with this right here, $262,000, and the deferred property taxes plus 8% interest, they still have a nice little chunk of change on the home. And we were able to save $138,000 of total income over the course of our lives for Charlotte and me. Now, for simple interest, we only pay $222,000 back because simple interest, you simply take 8, the interest rate, times the number of years of simple interest. All right. So in this case, it's just $17,600 is what we have to pay back for having deferred $8,000 as simple interest. It's just 8 times the number of years they deferred it. It's literally, it's not compounding on itself. There's not interest, not building on interest, not building on interest. It's just 8% a year on the initial $8,000. So hopefully it's simple interest, not compounding, but we're talking about the government. So I presume it's going to be compounding, but it did not say. So anyway, at the end of this day, we paid $222,000 we got to pay back. Again, we were able to defer paying $138,000 in total taxes, but we will have to pay $222,000 back. It costs us about $80,000 of total interest. But when my kids sell the house, they're going to get $199,000 because they're going to sell it for $422,000 after 15 years, and they're going to have to pay back $222,000. So they're going to still net $200,000. And we were able, Charlotte and I, to defer paying $138,000 of tax, which allows us a better lifestyle. So there's no closing costs to do this. There's no sale. There's no commission, no list of property. It's nothing like that. It's just you go down to the county office, the appraisal's office, say, I'd like to defer my tax. Now, what I've done is if you do, let's say you do it instead of for 15 years, you do it for 25 years, it begins to look pretty unfavorable there. So if you're going to do it at 65 and you're going to wait until you're 90 to die, that $8,000 compounded at 8% a year will cost $54,000 by the time you pay it back when you're 90. So I'm not a big fan of doing that, but for 15 years or less, and you don't want to move, you don't want to sell your home, you don't want to do a reverse mortgage because the closing costs of a reverse mortgage are pretty extensive. Plus the reverse mortgage has an interest rate as well. It won't be 8%, but like 5.25%, 5.5%. At least in this case, you don't have closing costs, and you can always pay it back without a fee or anything like that, a penalty. And you don't have closing costs, you don't have to get an appraisal, and you don't have to sell your home either. So for those in Texas who are not looking at reverse mortgage as a opportunity. Deferring property tax might work okay. I tell you, I think it's. I actually like it. It's another arrow in the quiver. The more arrows in the quiver we can get for you, I think the better off we all are. Now, this won't be for everybody, but for some people, it absolutely makes sense without question. What they'll say is just make sure if you have an existing mortgage on your residence, the tax deferral does not prevent your company, if your mortgage company, from paying delinquent taxes. A tax deferral applies only to the collection of taxes. So just remember, if you do have an existing mortgage and they're escrowing it and you want to defer the property tax, you got to call your mortgage company and say, hey, I want to escrow my taxes. I don't want to escrow my taxes. I want to pay it directly, and then go take that to your county and say I'm deferring my taxes. That way the mortgage company doesn't take the taxes out when you're trying to defer. Anyway, I hope this makes sense. To my man who sent this to me, mucho gracias. I appreciate that. I'll put a link in the show notes for this, and I like it. I think it's a good option. Hopefully more states will allow this. It's not for everybody, probably not for a majority of people, but again, more options are better than less when it comes to your retirement plan. All right, we'll see you guys next time. Thanks now.